You know, there are a bunch of popular animes nowadays. You got My Hero Academia, Attack on Titan, and Black Clover. All of these are really cool shonen animes. There's another category of animes that a lot of people are forgetting. Seinen manga or anime is targeted towards young adult men and has a bunch of great shows like Berserk, Kingdom, or Vinland Saga. And many times the themes or ideals that are discussed in seinen manga or anime are more realistic or adult themes. And Vinland Saga is a great example of a seinen anime. It has everything that a shonen anime would have. Great fight scenes, a good antagonist, great characters, and absent fathers. But then it also deals with something that a lot of seinens have, which is there are a lot of gray areas for many of the characters in the story. Nobody is all good in Vinland Saga, and nobody is all bad in Vinland Saga. People are just people in the show. Some of its themes like revenge and grief, and how those things motivate characters to take certain actions in the show, makes this show one of the best animes I've seen in a while. So let's talk about it. Spoilers. So, Vinland Saga is a show about this young man named Thorfinn, who's the son to one of the greatest fighters in Viking history, Thors. And Thors is a Viking warrior who had an epiphany one day and realized, oh shit, I could die from this shit, and stopped fighting. And he doesn't want that life for his son, so he teaches his son, you have no enemies. And one day when his son is on the boat with him, what happens? Enemies pull up and Thors gets killed. And so Thorfinn, like the smart, obedient young little boy that he is, disobeys his father's orders and swears to get vengeance for his father's death from the man that killed him.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
Now, just from looking at these characters, we can see how well this show uses their motivations to have these characters make certain decisions. First, we'll take Thors, who seems pretty idealistic, thinking that he can drop the sword and escape battle forever. But right at the time of his death, we see him pick the sword back up to protect the ones that he loves. But at the same time, we hear him claim that he's still an imperfect person, because he still has to resort to violence, something that he threw away to protect the ones that he loves. And also why his decision to stand down and let himself get killed at his death makes sense. Because first of all, he wouldn't let his son, who's been taken hostage, just die. And even though he could probably 1v30 the whole crew that came to jump them and come out on top, there would still be casualties on both sides, and it would just end in meaningless deaths, which is something that he's already shown that he's against. Then we look at Askeladd, the murderous SOB who killed Thors, who's probably one of the most interesting characters on this show, because without his backstory, we don't really know what his true intentions are, or what he wants. But at first glance, we know that he's very deceitful, he's cunning, he tries to act like he doesn't care or he's not interested in something, but in fact, he's always watching and he's always plotting. And he serves as Thorfinn's main antagonist for the first season, but at the same time, he also serves as Thorfinn's fatherly figure or parental figure in the first season. But just because he seems like Thorfinn's parental figure doesn't mean that he's not going to mess with Thorfinn's emotions and mind, which is what he does every time Thorfinn challenges him to a duel, because he knows that he can't win on a physical level. It's not until we get Askeladd's tragic backstory that we know that he just hates all Vikings and he doesn't want to see them touch Wales. And this love of Wales, his mother's homeland, and his hatred for Vikings is what fuels his decision to kill the king at the end of the season by taking a gamble on the king's son that he will protect the country from Vikings in the future. And so when we get to a character like Thorfinn, he seems easily figured out already. He wants revenge for his dad's death.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
But then we see the lengths that Thorfinn is willing to go to just to get a chance to challenge Askeladd at a duel. And we realize revenge is all he cares about. Nothing past, present, or future matters if it's not about revenge for his dad's death. So on the surface, while revenge can be looked at as a motivator for the decisions that Thorfinn makes, ultimately you have to look a little deeper to see how his grief plays a part into all of this. But first, let's talk about revenge. Anyone watching this show knows that Thorfinn wants his revenge, plain and simple. And if you don't know that, we're watching completely different shows. But Thorfinn wants revenge so bad that he's willing to go to any lengths just to get it. Thorfinn even runs errands for the man that killed his father just to get a chance at dueling him. Whether it's to kill one soldier or it's to kill somebody on a bridge, Thorfinn will do it. And it doesn't matter who gets in his way. He even goes as far as to betraying the trust of a family who took him in after he was injured, just to later on let their village get pillaged by the Vikings of Askeladd's crew. That when the prince kills Askeladd because he killed the king, Thorfinn goes into a blind rage, attacking the prince, who is the now king. And Askeladd's death is something that destroys Thorfinn, because this point is something that he can never see past if Askeladd were to die. Thorfinn has made no plans for the future past Askeladd's death. So Askeladd's death leaves him in an abyss of nothingness. But while revenge seems to be all there is to Thorfinn, many forget before his revenge he was grieving, and he never finished that process. Now obviously his grief is a motivation for his revenge, but it's only a motivation for his revenge because he wasn't able to fully finish his grieving process. Many people grieve in different ways, and the grieving process is different for everybody. Among the 5 stages of grief, we see that Thorfinn has probably went through 2 since his father had died. And those would be denial and anger.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
Or bargaining. And so we see he's stuck in the anger bargaining stage where he thinks the correct thing to do after losing his father is to get revenge. But being stuck with this unprocessed grief and the trauma of his father's death leads to many consequences in his life. We see that he suffers from PTSD. He has nightmares of the time his father died, and he has flashbacks of it often. And he also doesn't want to get close to anybody. Thorfinn also has depression. Nothing really brings him joy anymore. Even fighting, which he used to love as a little kid, now he just uses it as a tool to get what he wants. But other than that, he doesn't really smile. He may not say that he's sad, but what other feelings is he really feeling? It just seems like he's empty, devoid of all feelings. He's always anxious all the time also. Always seems to get irritated by every little thing, and he always seems to stay hypervigilant. Some people might say it's because of his battle skills, while that's just another way of saying that his anxiety is on 10. But the biggest thing that makes an impact on his personality is his father's death. It causes him to develop a bereavement disorder. It causes Thorfinn to be so fixated on his father's death that nothing else matters. It almost makes it seem as if life after his father's death isn't life at all, and Thorfinn is just waiting until the moment he can be able to see his father again. The only thing that matters to him is his father's death, and it creates this complex between Thorfinn and the means of his father's death. And we can see this through all the actions that Thorfinn takes throughout the season. While even though he doesn't say much, everything he does revolves around his father's death, which is why everything he does is to get revenge for his father, and ultimately why Thorfinn's motivation for the season isn't revenge, but it is grief.